Hi guys, EryxUK here, gaming update number 2. It's been about a month and a bit since I did the first one. So I just sort of like jump into this, what's been going on over the last month. Club-wise, our Sunday club is still going very magic heavy. I don't think it's going to change, unfortunately, but we have been trying to get some more board games being played down there. And the last couple of Sundays we've had a lot of games played. We've tried some of the new stuff. Star Trek Fleet Captains, that went down quite well. One of my favourites, a game called Mystery of the Abbey, and a few others. And so board games may, hopefully start to take off in that regard. I quite like board games, especially if they're not overly complex. I mean, I don't know what the difference is. I've got to be honest, I don't know what the difference is between Euro games and I don't even know what the opposite of Euro games is. But I prefer things like Talisman or say Mystery of the Abbey, Arkham Horror, that sort of style game to me. Roombound. Anyway, I'm kind of DJing there. Yeah, we've started getting some board games being done, which is good. We've had a couple of board game evenings as well. So fingers crossed we can start dragging those sort of players out from the Magic for a bit. At least until the next Magic set comes out. I've organised a Star Trek HeroClix tournament for middle of next month. Hopefully, we should have some players for that. The problem being at the moment that they under-expected, as it were, the amount of interest in it, and so there's no boosters for the game available. There's only a few starters, so we don't know how many people are actually going to be interested, because people may not be able to buy the stuff, and there's only limited ships between those of us that have managed to get some. The thing with Star Trek Clix, I have finally managed to complete my collection of the base set, one of each ship, thanks to eBay. So that's pretty cool. I'm chuffed with that. What else has gone on? Of the two Pathfinder games that I'm in, if you remember before, I was running one on Friday nights, every other Friday. But one of the players has taken over from that now, and he's come up with his own little game world, or corner of a game world, which is quite cool. We've got the usual players from that are involved. The first scenario we've done so far, we've got the next scenario tomorrow night, was quite good. Basically the premise is something along the lines of, in this particular kingdom, due to the amount of gold and treasure that adventurers tend to bring back, the king has decided that they should be taxed, and the easiest way to ensure that they're taxed is to force them to join a guild. So our adventurers have turned up at the nearest adventurers guild, seeking membership, and we've had to do like a test sort of adventure, where we have to enter a dungeon, collect the ring at the end of it and return it. And that was pretty cool. Unfortunately we did have some issues. The GM in question wants everybody to role play. He wants them to stay in character for the entire length of the session, which I think is, if you can do it, then absolutely fantastic. But unfortunately, we don't have the players to do it. I managed to stay in character for probably, an hour with my dwarf. I've gone for the archetypal Scottish dwarf. But only myself and one other player actually bothered. Everyone else just kind of nattered, and I don't think he was particularly happy that people didn't stay in character. But I did point out it's very difficult if everyone isn't doing it. And also one of our players is a bit of a twink. He's a bit of a power gamer, and unfortunately things didn't go his way during the game. Either the dice were against him, an encounter with cave fishers, or he completely ballsed up, leaping across a pit, went straight down it, and whereas everybody else had tied ropes to each other so we could support, he hadn't really mentioned that, so no one had heard him say it. So the GM had to go, well, if you don't actually tell me you're doing it, and that was it. He had a hissy fit, and sat out, called everyone, I won't repeat it, but then just sat there, and then 5 minutes later when we got to an encounter, suddenly his miniature reappeared from the pit on the map to where we are, and he was back to normal again. So hopefully we won't have a repeat of that tomorrow night, and I'm hoping the game will be just as good as the last one otherwise. The Sunday night game, which has probably got about a month and a half to run according to Jason, who's running it, and then I'll be taking over again, is going quite well. It's very Machiavellian. There's an awful lot going on. There's a lot of politics, intrigue, stuff to do with drow in flying ships, dwarves, or Durgar rather, poisoning the water supply of the capital city. Whether this is connected to the assassination at the beginning of the campaign, I don't know. I don't know whether I mentioned this in the first video a month ago, but what he's basically done is he's doing like a character tree, and everybody has 3 characters. Your only restriction was that those characters had to all be within, or your own characters had to be within one alignment step or any of the others. So if one was chaotic good, then the others had to be neutral good or chaotic neutral or chaotic good. They all had to be within one step on one another, so you couldn't have. Anyway, the problem is that we ended up assuming that meant it would be like the old Dark Sun character tree, where you picked 3 of your characters and they went on a quest. But no, he's got like 3 quests running, and you ended up having to split the characters between those 3 quests. But you didn't know after the first one what the other quest would be, and then everything is over a timeline. So we've ended up with parties that are completely mismatched. And it's really annoying in a way. It's a good game, I'm not going to fault it, but it is really annoying because sometimes you just want to play one character. I really like the sorceress I have in that game, and for the last 3 sessions, because we've been focusing on one particular group of adventurers, I've played my elf ranger, and it's like I like my characters because I've got a halfling rogue as well. Pardon me. But sometimes I just want to play a certain character and I can't. And it's also ended up where we have had a really inappropriate mix of characters. One of the early scenarios, we had 3 characters that were left behind, and we assumed that they would be sitting there doing some downtime or something. And it ended up with having to go into the sewers of the city to investigate this rotten smell and deal with that. But the only characters that were left were 2 Halfling Roads and a pacifist cleric. And it's like, how we managed to survive that particular one, I don't know. But, the pacifist cleric has since died, unfortunately. He got turned into a shadow in a later quest. So, yeah, I'm enjoying that game, but I would rather he hadn't done it the way he's done it. But, there you go. But I will be taking over that game again, as I say, about 2 months' time, I guess. And what I'm basically doing is... I emailed out to my guys, to the players, and I said, look, what do you want? We've just come out of running Rapanathak Dungeon of Graves Mega Dungeon the last time I ran. So, I'll appreciate it, you guys don't want to do dungeons for a bit. And they, and the problem is I got a dozen completely different responses back. Someone said, they said, not so much on the dungeons, at least to start with. Let's have political stuff, adventure on the high seas. They agree with me, low treasure, travelling, and getting to know the characters and the NPCs where we are. And it's like, well, that's some great ideas, but I'd have a hell of a trouble trying to gel that together. So what I've said is I want to go back to basics, as it were. The modern sort of D&D game has kind of, outgrown me, I think. And I want to go back to basics. And what I've done is I've dug up a load of my original basic D&D modules, the old red box, blue box, that sort of stuff. And I'm using the maps and taking the ideas and basically rewriting them. And I've said, right, we're going to have low treasure, we're going to have advancement when I say, basically, because now that Pathfinder doesn't have a need for you to spend XP on anything, I don't really see the point in having keeping track of it. It should be just a case of, you say, when the GM says you level. So I said that's what I'm going to do. So you'll have about 3 completed scenarios for each level, basically. There'll be low treasure to keep that in balance. Magic is rare, relatively. You're not going to find magic items on everybody, and so forth. High level characters are rare again. There are not going to be many people that can cast resurrection or anything like that. And it will be back to the old style basic game. And I said you won't have an overarching plot. What we'll do is we're starting you off as caravan guards. That's how you've got the money for your starting equipment, and the initial few scenarios will be following this particular caravan wherever it stops. There'll be a quest, but then I'm going to kind of jump around because I wanted to see what the Pathfinder setting was like. And so far I've only picked a couple of areas to run games in. Whereas with doing this, I can just go, right, there's such a month gap and you're now here, and can split modules around it. So I'm looking forward to running that. I'm actually feeling my creative juices flowing again. I'm also involved, as I think I mentioned before, in the Dark Heresy game every other Tuesday, and that's quite good. I'm enjoying that at the moment, although the GM for that is a little bit sandboxy, and I don't like sandboxy. I can't remember whether I mentioned this in the last video, so I apologise if I am repeating myself. But basically, in that, we've been sent on a quest by our Inquisitor to find out what happened to another Inquisitor and his acolytes who have ceased transmitting, have ceased making contact back to the Imperium, and their last known location was on a kind of Mos Eisley style space station out in the middle of nowhere that the Imperium knows about but isn't too concerned with. If too much crime and smuggling starts going on through it, or dealing in heretical items, then they might kind of crush it. But so we had to pretend to be known criminals or semi-known criminals to infiltrate the place and find what's going on. The problem is that was what we were left with, and then we have like 7 floors of a space station that we've got to investigate ourselves, and it was just left open, and it took us 2.5 sessions to finally actually get somewhere. And on one of the sessions, to be fair, on the drive home, one of my fellow players said to me, we found this and we found that, but did we actually do anything this evening? And it's like, no, not really. But it's a good game. It just needs to be more structured in the story, I think, as opposed to sandboxy. Finally, on the Warhammer front, the league is going quite strong. We're coming up to the halfway point, which is pretty good. I kind of figured it might have actually felt like it was running longer than it is, but we're doing quite well with it. There's been a couple of grumbles from players who got missions that didn't suit their army, despite the fact that I said this is the point. You have to adapt. If you get a mission, an opponent that you can't initially, you think, oh great, now I'm going to get scuppered. It's a test of your general ability, your ability to adapt and command your army under poorer conditions. And 2 of the guys have grumbled. One of them grumbled about terrain, they're not big enough, despite the fact that he didn't use it. Like, you're going to lose if you don't use terrain. This is kind of the point of the game, And the other one just kind of grumbled because the mission was not in his favour. Well, we've got 2 players that tend to grumble about that. One of them is the same guy who I mentioned of in the Friday night Pathfinder game, who was the power gamer. And so I can see why he grumbled, and everyone just kind of let it slide. He's going to grumble whatever happens. But otherwise, the game's going good. I had a friendly last night against my friend Joel, who I don't think I've ever beaten. He says I did, but it was under 4th edition. I can't actually remember that. And the game was slightly imbalanced. He thought we were doing a slightly smaller game than we were, and it was basically probably I had an extra dreadnought and maybe half a squad more than he had the points for. But he said, no, we'll go for it, it'll be a challenge. And it was a really good game. It was a really close game. and I just managed to steal it on the end. If it actually ended turn 5 and I was in the right position and it ended. So I'm quite chuffed by that. I'm not gloating, Joel, if you're watching. I'm just quite pleased that after all this time I have managed to actually get a victory over you. But it was a very good game, and I'm looking forward to our next one. As for what the next month will bring, I don't know. Hopefully both the Friday night game and the Dark Heresy game will get better and better. They'll leap forward in leaps and bounds. Other than that, I don't know. But that's what's happened in the last month, and yeah, it's been quite good. It's been a good month of gaming. Anyway, this video is going on a bit longer than I had anticipated, so until next time, take care and good game.